Alright guys, welcome back to another Master and Apprentice video and podcast. As you guys can see from the title, thumbnail, we're going to be talking about the brand new Star Wars Tales of the Underworld. I'm going to preface this, there's been two other series, Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Empire. I might mix up the titles because they're all very similar, so in my head I might pronounce it wrong. Just know, in general, we were reviewing Tales of the Underworld today. That's what we're talking about. So if there's any confusion, I'll let the rest know. With all that being said, Tales of the Jedi was pretty much beloved by everybody. Tales of the Jedi was a really great series. And then Tales of the Empire comes out about a year after with, a lot of excitement behind it because Tales of the Jedi was so fun and Tales of the Empire thought it could be, a great predecessor. It was not. Tales of the Empire was not as beloved. For the most part, a lot of fans didn't like it. It wasn't as exciting. It didn't draw as much attention. So we didn't really know what to expect with Tales of the Underworld. Is it going to be the hype of Tales of the Jedi? Is it going to be the disappointment of Tales of the Empire? Or is it going to be its own case? Or is it going to be somewhere in between? And I think all of that being said, when I originally finished watching it, it brought me somewhere closer to the middle. I thought it was very good, but there were some parts I didn't love. But the more I dwelled on it, I thought it was more similar to Tales of the Jedi than Tales of the Empire. It was a really good series that I thought did its purpose. Now this is kind of split up just like the other two series. 6 episodes, 2 characters, so 3 episodes for one character, 3 episodes for another character. And they're about 10-15 minutes each. So you get about 30 minutes in general, maybe 35 minutes in general for each character and 3 short episodes. And the first arc was about Asajj Ventress. And we had heard, they're going to be covering some stuff from Dark Disciple because in Bad Batch we see the return of Asajj Ventress. For those who don't know, who haven't read, Dark Disciple is a novel about Asajj Ventress and Quinlan Vos, and in some Spark Notes, Cliff Notes style, they essentially fall in love after trying to assassinate Dooku, after falling in love and going through a dark side relationship. Asajj sees the light and Quinlan sacrifices herself and dies. And that was it. That was all we had heard of. That was canon. The book is still canon. Then we see her pop up in Bad Batch, but Dave Filoni assures us that book is still canon and that is still something you can read and use as canon and lore in the Star Wars universe. And they addressed that immediately, and I'm very glad because I don't remember the last time we've seen that in Star Wars, in animation or just in Star Wars in general, where they use direct adaptation from a novel and go right from that story onto the screen. I don't think it's been done in the new Star Wars era yet. I'm glad they did it. I thought it was done very well. And it kind of helps everyone else who wasn't aware of, why people were maybe upset or confused of Asajj Ventress's return. It gives a little bit of surrounding information that might help. And I think it maybe will spark some interest in the novel itself. Like, oh, what's going on with Quinlan Vos and why is she dead? You know what I mean? So I'm glad. And that's pretty much what episode 1 is all about. The rest of episode 2 and 3 and like the last half of episode 1, it's essentially about a Ventress trying to find her way in the galaxy, essentially, right? She finds this kid who's a Jedi looking for the path. We know what the path is. It's essentially this underground system. I wouldn't say rebels, but of survivors trying to help Jedi survive. We see it in the Kenobi series. We've seen it in other novels. And so we see this kid's trying to find it, and Ventress, she goes in her feelings. She's like, I want to help this kid. Right? This kid seems to need help. He mentions Quinlan Vos, so it piques her interest, and she goes to help him. And that's essentially what those 3 episodes are about. Is Asajj is not necessarily a hero, but she's no longer a villain, right? She's kind of found herself in this galaxy where she's a rugged anti-hero, I think. And she's helping this kid out, and long cut to short, they essentially team up, and that's how it ends. They're going to be buddies in the new Empire age. And it's a quick story. But, I mean, the title does say Tales, right? It's not supposed to be this crazy mythos story that builds the mythos of this character. It's supposed to give some addition to it and some extra details, but it's not supposed to only do that. It's supposed to give you a fun tale that helps build the mythos, but that isn't necessarily securely focused on the mythos. So for what it is, I definitely enjoyed it. First time around watching it, I was like, Second time watching it, I was like, I enjoyed it. Instead of looking at it from a point of like, I'm trying to review it, I enjoyed the story for what it is, and I liked it. It reminded me like something that could have been like a comic I'm big into comics, and a lot of these comics have these quick little short stories that one page will add a huge thing to the mythos, and the rest of the pages don't really add much. They're just a quick story, and this is kind of what that was.
Yeah, I mean, Sammy already said it, but the coolest part about this for me was Dark Disciple ended pretty much with Quinlan Voss walking away, and that's the exact scene where we picked up on. We literally started to the end of that. I mean, it was a really cool transition. They had like a version of a scene from the Ahsoka book into Tales of the Jedi before, but that was the scene. That was not the end. They literally ended on here and picked up with the same scene and just ran with it from someone else's perspective, and that was so cool to see on screen. I mean, I really liked Asajj Ventress's arc. I really did. It was cool. It really bridges the gap between Dark Disciple and when we see her in the Bad Batch, because in Dark Disciple, she's conflicted. Yes, she doesn't 100%. She sees the light in the Jedi. She likes Quinlan Voss, and that puts conflict in her mind and her just personality. And then you go over into Bad Batch. Oh, okay, hair now, and you are completely different. Not a bad guy. You find these clones, and you're not gonna just kill them instantly. Like it is a complete shift. But this is a great job at bridging the gap. The only thing I would have liked to see would have been if we knew that Jedi from somewhere else. But I'm not even going to complain, because the way that Star Wars has been doing things animated-wise is, well, maybe that Jedi's going to pop up somewhere else. Maybe this is going to turn into that. And I'm not even going to complain about that, because it was still a pretty cool story. Very cool action. We saw some other bounty hunters that we saw at some other times during, I think it was a Clone Wars, or maybe it was Bad Batch, whatever it was. It was a fun 3-episode arc. Of the 2 arcs, I enjoyed Asajj's a lot more. Not saying that Cad Bane's was bad, but Asajj's was excellent.
Before we move on, the one other thing I didn't love that I feel like I needed more of was explaining the magic, right? Because the magic of the Night Sisters and the Dathomirian witches is so mysterious still. We still have so many unanswered questions, and them resurrecting Asajj and saying you're gonna choose to live again but not have what your heart desires, and that's cool and all, but I have so many questions still, and maybe that's the whole point. But I would have liked to see some answers, and maybe hopefully moving forward they probably will. But that was the one thing I was like, that's a lot to drop on us and not give us any kind of answer on. So that being said, moving to the Cad Bane, here's the second arc. The last 3 episodes, I'm the exact opposite of Afton. I thought the Cad Bane episodes were phenomenal. Those reminded me of Tales of the Jedi. It was like young Dooku. It was showing the young, aspiring kid who had a rough, rugged life, and kind of what drove him to become this rugged bounty hunter criminal, right? First episode, he's a kid, and it shows kind of how his life from his buddy departs so quickly and so vastly. And it kind of shows where he starts to aspire things, right? His voice, he trying to changes his voice. He kind of aspires to be who his mentor is. The hat of his mentor, he takes that hat. The toothpick that his mentor used to carry around, he copies him, right? All these things, that's a really cool nod to say this is how Cad Bane picked up these little niche things, right? So I really liked it. The story, it did such a great. It reminded me of something similar to Breaking Bad, where the beginning you really feel bad for Cad Bane, or if they call him Kobe, right? And by the end of it, you're like, oh my god, this guy is a villain, straight up villain. He kills his buddy in front of his kid and finds out, oh, that's my kid. So I just killed in front of my kid, who he thought his dad. He doesn't care. He just walked away. Well, there's smoking holes in the guy's chest, and the kid's just like, what? And Cad Bane had no cares are given. It's straight villain. It was really cool to see. It was I thought that built a lot on the mythos of Cad Bane, and it gave him a lot more character depth. It's you can't feel bad for him, but at the same time, you're it does kind of humanize him in a way. But it does a good job of not humanizing him too much, because he is a villain. You can't humanize a villain too much, because sometimes I think it does a bad job of keeping them a villain, right? We see it with Marvel and the anti-hero stuff. They try to make it humanize a villain, and then the villain is no longer worthy of being a villain, it feels like. So I think they did a good job of humanizing him to start with, but then showing why he's a jerk, why he's not a good guy. and I really liked it. That last arc, I really liked that.
Yeah, my favorite part about it, which I might be mistaken, but I feel like we don't see it a ton in this Star Wars, Marvel, like this comic type space area, is when two people grow up in the same bad situation and then they have completely different paths they take. The complete opposites. Where Cad Bane goes and becomes a bounty hunter and starts killing people left and right and just a murderer, not caring, no empathy given at all. Literally together growing up in the same situation, and then a couple decisions and then they're the opposite person. Not even recognizable again. That last scene where he left off with his kid in the body and not even caring about it and walking away was definitely a mic drop. It was awesome.
So yeah, in general, I liked it. I don't necessarily think it was as great as Tales of the Jedi, but I think it was a lot closer to Tales of the Jedi than it was Tales of the Empire. Like I liked it a lot. These are some fan favorite characters, whereas Tales of the Jedi was a little bit more bigger characters. Like everyone knows who Count Dooku is, right? He not only is he big in the Clone Wars, but he's big in the movies, right? And Ahsoka is like probably the biggest character in the Clone Wars, I would argue. Like I feel like Clone Wars is pretty much Ahsoka's show, essentially, for the first 6 seasons. So, and even the 7th season. But Cad Bane's, he only pops up here and there. He only has one live action appearance, and Asajj Ventress isn't in the last 2 or 3 seasons of Clone Wars. So these are characters that aren't as popular, and I'm glad they got to have like their own show shine on them, because I thought these were really cool, just character development issues and just cool story arcs. So in general, I liked it. I'd probably give it an 8 probably an 8 out of 10. If you like Clone Wars, you'll like this. Not only because the animation is very similar and it's Dave Filoni, but the characters are really cool and it's from the Clone Wars.
Yeah, I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. I think it was great. There was nothing I really hated on it a ton. If you like these characters, you're going to like the series 100%. And I mean, I don't know, I'll bump it up to an 8. There's really very little I can say that I didn't like about this.
Yeah. No, if you're looking for something that has, like, Tales of the Jedi is like a 9 or a 10, right? And this doesn't have as much mythos building, but I think it did a lot more for the characters, right? Whereas it didn't do very much for the character of Ahsoka in Tales of the Jedi. This did more for the characters, in my opinion. So, in general, I really liked it. If you like the Tales series, you'll like this one. So I would definitely recommend watching it. And with that being said, let us know what you guys think down in the comments. If you guys liked it, didn't like it. If you guys, what do you guys think of our review? If you guys agree with any of our points, disagree with our points. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. If you guys are listening on podcast, don't forget to hit that download and follow. I want to see you guys in the next one.